Welcome. You're listening to the GrowOrtho podcast, presented by HIP. This podcast is dedicated to orthodontists who want to stand strong in their market and be leaders in their community. Now, on to today's show. Hey, it's Luke at HIP, and I was going through some old interviews and came across this interview that I did probably three and a half years ago with Amanda Floyd, the COO at Fishbein Orthodontics, and we actually never released it. I released parts of the interview, but not the whole thing. And just going back through it, I thought, man, this would be really valuable for just about any practice out there, even though some of the information Amanda may share about the practice is dated, like their production or growth, or maybe even some of the systems. The foundation and the principles that Amanda shares are still very relevant and very powerful. So I wanted to share the information with you. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening to the GrowOrtho podcast. Amanda, thanks for sitting down with me today. One of the big reasons why I just wanted to chat and get your thoughts on, orthodontics and the business is you guys do such an amazing job with orthodontics and running the business. We've been working with you guys for about 3 years now. Yep. And one of the big things that we've gotten involved with is Fishbone Fundamentals. And that course and educating doctors around the country, I thought it would be really cool just to sit down and chat and help educate people online who may be watching this video or listening on a podcast on how to, run an orthodontic practice, what it looks like from your perspective and how your team looks like. So talk a little bit about Fishbone Fundamentals and what that is.
So Fishbone Fundamentals is our in-office course. We hold it twice a year, September and March. We've sold out I think we've done 3. September is the next one coming up. It's sold out already. So we have March 2020 open right now. We had a lot of interest in people wanting to come visit the practice. We had I guess what people call progressive growth, very extreme growth, looking at numbers year to year. And it's one of those things that people saw and wanted to come in and how are you doing this? What have you put into place that's creating this rapid growth? So in order just to kind of systemize that, we created Fishbone Fundamentals where people could come in an organized way, where we can present the information in an organized way that's less disruptive to our team and our patient flow, because we're seeing patients every day. Yeah. So even when we have visitors, we're still doing, we're having a regular patient day. Our team is here just trying to do their job. Right. So Fishbone Fundamentals has, it's been really fun for us because we've met so many people around the world. Yeah. But it's just kind of streamlined that educational process. Yeah, and it's pretty neat because it's not like these trade shows that you come to where it's a bunch of vendors and people trying to sell to you. Right. It's very hands-on. Like you guys actually let people come in your practice. We do. Mm-hmm. On a normal patient day. Yeah, so they get to see, how you sell, how you run clinic, all those valuable things. And then you also go through a lot of teaching on operations and marketing. Yeah. So it's pretty awesome. And how can people find out more about that? We have a website, fishbonefundamentals.com. They can also email me or Liza, Amanda at fishortho.com, and we're happy to send out any information on it. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's kind of get into to why we're here today. So tell me, or tell everybody who's watching or listening a little bit about yourself, just your personal life and your background. I've been in the orthodontic industry for 20 years. So I started, I think my first ortho practice, I started when I was around 21. I'm married, I have 3 daughters. 2 of my daughters, my 2 older daughters, actually work in our practice. So awesome. They both started the same way, just as a part-time job while they're in school. And they just kind of stuck with it because it's a good industry. It's a feel-good kind of place to work. So they both love it. Our youngest daughter is starting college at UWF in the fall. And my husband works for ExxonMobil, so he's here local. Okay. And I started with this practice in 2012. So we moved down here about a year before that, and I started working. The practice at that point was owned by another orthodontist, and we were a very small practice. So it's been it's a lot different over these last few years. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that when you started the practice, and what was it like working with that other doctor, and what is it like now, and how
has Dr. Ben's vision kind of changed things? Obviously, you guys have grown tremendously over the past couple of years. So just talk about some of the differences of, what the practice was like before and then kind of what sparked a change.
The practice before is what I think in the industry they call it like a boutique practice. We had one location that was open. I think we were open 3 days a week then, and we had the Navarre location, very small. We were open once a week. We saw about 30 patients a day in those days. 4 new patients a day. 2-hour consults. One patient, 2 hours. It's a totally different process. So I was a TC at that point. And when Dr. Fishbein came in and bought the practice, our previous orthodontist was, he had cancer. So Dr. Ben came in, bought the practice. We kept everything the same for about a year. Shortly after he bought the practice, I started managing it, and he had a goal, something he wanted to do within 5 years. But he had to see patients. He doesn't have time to, put all the things in place that need to happen for that kind of growth. So we really just set out a business plan and just kind of did it step by step. We reached our 5-year goal in about a year and a half.
Wow.
And I think we're on track this year to quadruple the 5-year. And this actually is our 5-year point. So
wow, that's
it's pretty
awesome.
exciting. Yeah.
So you mentioned consults would last like 2 hours.
Right.
So what is that typical in the industry?
It's not unheard of. So I think the average consult at this point is a little over an hour. We see some practices that do 40 minutes, which is really progressive. We do 30.
Okay.
So we have a new patient every 15 minutes. And they have 10 minutes with a records tech and 20 minutes with RTC.
With that first consult and appointment, how much time does it take from the doctor?
About a minute and a half.
I mean, I kind of see, with some of the people we work with, the doctor obviously wants to be very hands-on and spend a lot of time with the patient. And I think what happens is that keeps them from being able to grow because a lot of times they can only afford one doctor.
Sure.
So how did you guys figure that out and change that and kind of streamline like a minute for the doctor versus an hour?
In increments, honestly, Luke, we did, we had 2 hours and then we shortened it to an hour and a half. And we shortened it to an hour. We shortened it to 40 minutes. We shortened it to 30 minutes. So it's just, little by little. It's also putting the right people in place that are willing to accept things are going to change. These are these are the things that we need to do to get to the next level. And I think we've done a really good job at finding those people that are willing to go in the direction that, we find. And it's not always the right direction. Like, don't get me wrong. We do things and then realize the next week, let's not do that. That didn't work. And then go back. But then we've, along the way, we've found things that have really worked well. So the doctor time in the consult, I think most doctors will say that their conversion rates go up the less time they spend in the room. So it's also a difference in just, a lot of practices are very doctor-centric and we aren't.
So why do you think conversion rates go up the less time they're in the room?
I think it's important. I like the patient to meet the doctor. I think that's important. But the TCs are trained. That's what they're trained to do. Your treatment coordinators are trained to be that person for the patient. So for a doctor, most of the time, that's not where their skill is or their background is. They're very technical. Personality or one-on-one conversation or getting to know the patient or really, it's not their strong suit.
Right. So
typically.
It's about having specialists who can really own the role.
In each department, everywhere. Yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you as COO? You're running the business.
Right.
Explain kind of like a typical day.
I mean, I wish I could. A typical day, I think I live by my calendar. It's different every day. Up until this year, I would spend probably 50% of my time with the other doctors and the other locations, really just making sure your culture feels the same, the systems are being maintained. Now we have a director of operations that does that, so I'm a little further removed from that at this point. Since I started, I've been pretty focused on building offices. We do everything ourselves. So start to finish, from the design to furnishing to building the schedule, putting the team in place. So, hiring the right people, putting everyone in place, And so I spend a decent amount of my time doing that. And then consulting, one-on-one, people visiting, it's just different every day.
Yeah.
Payroll,
Right.
HR, sitting in on meetings, interviews.
So it's a ton of stuff, obviously. Yeah. And then with your organization, talk about how is your organization structured? Kind of start with the managers and then go down from there.
Okay. So our doctors, one of the things that's a little different for us, our doctors are not directly involved in management. So our doctors are strictly in patient care.
And why is that? Is that so they can really own what their doctor, so owning that treatment? It's
another one of those things, like, as I said, like a treatment coordinator, it's not their strong suit. Managing a practice, it's not what they're skilled at. It's also not the best use of their time.
Right.
The most productive use of a doctor's time is to be seeing patients, putting on brackets or taking off brackets or Invisalign. So also just for scale, the fact that it's not scalable.
Right.
So we've wanted to create systems that we could maintain going forward, in multiple practices with multiple doctors and teams. So we have a structure that the doctors remove from management directly. I have, the person that works directly with me is our director of operations. Everyone reports to her. We have an office manager for each team. We have a clinical manager for each team, and then we have one overall clinical manager. So we have layers of leadership.
Gotcha.
And each of those, they all know, who they're reporting to and who reports to them.
So with the doctor not being involved in management, how did that start? And was it easy to kind of get the doctor out of the way and explain that to them? Or what were some of the challenges?
It started very organically, to be honest, because Dr. Ben is not comfortable with management. So it's just not one of those things. He's not comfortable sitting down one-on-one and problem solving, or, to be honest, a lot to do with managing is listening to, whatever issues someone has going on and just kind of being an ear to someone. Also disciplinary actions are not his strong suit. So he's always good cop. So he's always the good guy. So it started easily and organically because he didn't want to be involved in it. From there, it's really hard to have someone else that is highly involved. With him being the practice owner and that's his leadership style, we had to adapt from there and create the systems that, and then finding the right associates to come in and know these are the systems that we already have in place. Is this something that you can work with? And it's worked out really well for us. Our fourth doctor starts later this year.
Yeah.
And it's worked really well.
A lot of offices obviously come here and learn from you guys, or you talk with them at Fishbone Fundamentals. Do you think that can be a pitfall? And a lot of doctors think that they need to be involved because technically they're the owner, and so they're kind of getting in the way. What are some things that you see there?
I think that some doctors can have a more active role. It depends on the personality type. But typically, sometimes it does get in the way. I mean, the bottom line is it's not the most productive use of their time.
Right.
And
do you guys use anything for personality types? Like,
we don't. Yeah, we don't.
Okay.
We never have.
I gotcha. In terms of systems, you guys talk a lot about systems and processes. How do you come up with these systems, and what do you guys use to document systems?
So, we have systems for everything. Anything you can think of, I think we have a system for it. And it looks really easy now looking in. People come in and they're like, oh yeah, all these systems, everything's great. Like, it didn't start that way. 2 years ago, we didn't have a system for anything. So just little by little, as things have come up, we're like, okay, these things are creating, like, when you're having to remember all the time, like, I'm just going to use an example. We had 2 employees move recently. Just in the past month, we've had 2 employees move, and I'm trying to remember, like, okay, I need to remove them from payroll. I need to remove them from focus. I need to make sure if they're in treatment, they're getting transferred. So then that's me saying, it'd be easy if we had a checklist for this. So then I'll go to Brittany and say, this is what I'm looking for. She'll create a rough draft, and then we have a graphic designer that puts it into a template that is, it looks like everything else. So everything looks nice and neat, and it's really just a checklist so that everything is being done and we're not having to remember every time or recreate the wheel every time something happens. So it's really just been through things like that.
That's awesome.
Knowing, okay, we need a system for this.
Yeah. And do you guys store them on like a shared drive?
We do. We use Google Drive, and everything goes into the drive. So as soon as something's done, the office manager will email it to me and I'll put it into the employees folder.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've had to do the same thing, running a business and having employees. If you don't have operating procedures or processes, it's going to be done different every single time.
Right.
So if you're going to be efficient, I would just encourage any business owner, have systems, have processes. We use a lot of videos, so we'll record videos of ourselves. But however you do it, doesn't really matter, whether it be graphic design or Google Docs, spreadsheets, video. The point is having that process documented so everybody who comes on the team can follow it to that T. And then another thing is like evaluating and identifying what went wrong. You just go back to that and walk through the SOP or procedure with that person. And a lot of times they didn't follow it, understand it, something like that.
Yeah, that's we've created what we call a statement of work for every position. So that's been really good for us because everyone knows exactly what their job is, exactly what this is your primary focus, this is your secondary focus, this is your downtime focus, this is who you report to, these are the people that report to you if applicable. That's been just anything like that, anything we can think of, we have systems for every department, for start of day, end of day, middle of day. Every procedure that comes up, there's a system, a checklist that goes with it.
So you're setting people up to succeed.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about leadership. How important is leadership in the workplace, and how do you guys incorporate leadership here at Fishbein Orthodontics?
Leadership is extremely important. I think people don't realize how important it is, and just really empowering your leaders, your team leaders. So finding the right people. Our style of leadership is a little bit different. We don't hire someone in at a leadership level. We always hire them in at an entry level and then promote from within, because we want our leaders to be respected by the team, and it's hard to do that with someone that your team doesn't know.
Right.
So for us, our culture is everything. It's like kind of what makes us who we are. Patients feel it. I think anyone that comes into our practice kind of feels that. Just
Definitely.
like this something that's a little different here.
Yeah.
It's very relaxed, and we're not. Ben is really laid back. I'm super laid back. So we kind of we've had to. So I don't know. I guess that's like our leadership style is very laid back, but at the same time we do have high expectations.
Sure.
So I think leadership is huge. Not just leadership, but layers of leadership, and people understanding what their role is, who they report to, and that comes with your business growing. You can start a team of 10 can have one office manager. A team of 20, you may need 2 leaders. With our team size 75, we have I think our leadership team consists of 4 directors and 4 office managers. So
wow.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the culture. Obviously, to me, your office and culture feels totally different. We work with healthcare practices, pain management, plastic surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and it can get very dry in some of these offices that we go in. There can be high wait times, and communication can be poor, bedside manner can be poor. You guys are a lot different. It's very fun. It's upbeat. Talk about how you were able to be different, and how did you implement that?
Part of it, again, is him. That's his style. He's super laid back. He loves music. The other part of it is like us evaluating what would we want if we go in. I don't want to sit in a waiting room that, first of all, one of the biggest things for me is like a clean office that smells nice, looks clean, and everyone's smiling, and you're happy to be here.
Yeah.
So like if we have a team member that isn't like having the best day, I'd rather them just go home than to affect patients that are coming in. They're only here for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If you're having a bad day, they're not having a good experience. So and I had a contractor a few weeks ago say, like, he was kind of going through our choices with, well, are you sure you want this? This isn't very commercial. Typically in commercial, construction, you would do this instead of this. I'm like, right. So like what you're saying is why I'm not doing that. We're not going for a commercial vibe. We're going for a relaxed at home, like, our style is very laid back and more like at home. Like our reception rooms look like, they look like somebody's house.
Yeah.
So that's on purpose.
Yeah, it's very
we
modern.
want people to feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about, what are some of the things like pictures that you do with patients, Dippin' Dots, talk about all that.
So all of everything throughout the office, it's patient photos. We had somebody ask that yesterday. They said, "Are these actually your real patients?" Like, yeah, of course. Like, they're not billboard. Like, who else would they be?
Yeah.
But we have photo shoots about once a quarter for patients that are coming out of treatment. We've recently started implementing or adding people that are still in treatment, which is kind of fun for them. We'll just have like a day they come in, do some photos. When we switch out the photos, we'll give their parents the picture that we're taking down to switch them out. We have Dippin' Dots in every location. They get them at every appointment. It's not just for new patients or not just for starts. It's every appointment, or their brother, sister, mom, whoever wants them. We have drinks and snacks in every location for our team. We keep that fully stocked. We're very serious about it. Can't run out of Red Bull.
Yeah.
Just, music, fun music, upbeat.
And so there's a bunch of little things that matter.
It's always a lot of little things. People
Yeah.
always ask, like, what's that one thing? Like, there's no real one thing. It's just a bunch of little things that you figure out. But I think most of the time, if you think, like, what would you want or how would you want to be treated, you come up with those things.
Yeah. What's your retention like with the team?
Oh, it's one of the highest in the industry, I'd say. We're above 90%.
Wow. That's awesome. And how do you guys hire and find team members?
So we do it a little differently than most. We hire strictly based on warm referrals. So over 90% of our team were hired because they knew someone that worked here, friend, family, just some referral. At least probably 10 of them have been people that I've seen out and about in places that I am, and get great customer service from someone. And I'll give them a business card. If you're ever looking, to change your profession, let me know.
Awesome. And let's talk about when someone comes on board and maybe they're not a great fit for, one of many reasons. How do you identify that? And when you do identify that, what do you do?
That's a really good question, actually. So we've had that happen multiple times. Like I said, we do typically hire warm referrals. And the number one thing in hiring is we're hiring for personality. So we're looking for someone that is going to be friendly, easygoing, but just, have a positive energy. So I can almost tell within about the first 2 minutes of an interview if it's a hire or a no hire. And it's based on just their energy. I hate to say I hate to sound weird, but it's just how you get a good feeling from someone. So, and then we'll hire them based on A, what positions we have open, and B, what we think they're a good fit for. Most of the time I can kind of tell, TC, front desk, call center, and also kind of depending on their interest, what they're interested in learning. There's been multiple times, though, we've put people in certain positions and they come back. Either they're not working out in that position, it's just not going well, or they're not happy in that position. And we've had people, come in. I'll use Lori for an example. She's amazing. She's our marketing coordinator. She started at front desk and then went into financial. And she hated it. She did not like financial. So she came in and she was putting her 2 weeks notice in. And this was about a year and a half ago. And I'm like, man, I hate to lose her because she's so great. And so we didn't have a marketing position open at the time, but I kind of created one for her because I just wanted to keep her.
Right.
And that was a year and a half ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you'll shift people around. If
Often.
Okay.
If they're not happy in their position or they're not performing well in that position, we'll just shift them into another one.
Okay. So when someone's not working out and you've identified that, do you put them through some type of program to see if you can, get them working on the team, or what's that look like?
We definitely have retraining for people. We hire for personality. So if we've hired someone and we liked their personality, unless they're moving, we really want to keep them.
Right.
There are exceptions to that, of course, and just like any business, we have lost employees, or we've had to let them go, or they've, separated. It's a lot more rare, but it does happen. If it's the right personality and it's not an attitude issue, we will go through retraining. Okay. We've done it with an assistant. We have step-by-step training guides, a 4-week training system, day by day, exactly what they're supposed to be working on, what they're supposed to be learning, a supervisor signing off that they've mastered the skill. So if we do have someone at that point, they've been through the training and it's just they're not catching on, we'll just go back through it. We'll spend some more time working on the areas that they need work on. And we'll put a seasoned team member with them, and we give our lead assistants or our lead front desk, the people that do the training, we give them a small bonus for training.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of set them through a secondary training. The exception would be if it's an issue of attitude or, just not the right fit for that reason, someone with just toxic negative energy, it's easier in that case just to separate.
Sure. So you guys invest a ton into team members,
We
obviously.
do.
So that's another reason why it makes sense to put them back through training, because you're so invested.
Right.
You would hate to waste time and energy, when you can have those training things to bring them back on the level that they need to be on. So that's awesome.
Or look at a different position. Maybe the position we put them in isn't the right fit.
Sure. So talk about when you guys are still growing very rapidly, but from when I met you, it was like 20 employees, 3 offices. Now it's 8 offices, 75 employees.
Yeah.
So you guys have probably gone through a lot of growing pains. Kind of talk about that and some of maybe the worst moments, and how did you overcome it?
Rapid growth in itself, especially if you don't expect it to that level, staffing is the biggest. We don't want to hire just any person. So it is, we do interviews almost every day. We had 3 this morning. We had 3 yesterday. So there's never a point where we're not interviewing. I feel like part of my day, that's my day every day, is interviewing. Out of the 10 we've had this week, I don't know if we've hired any of them, maybe 1.
Okay.
Brittany actually does the hiring. So I think maybe she's hired 1 of them. So it's like looking for that right personality fit. And that's tough when you are having to backpedal and you need these people and you really need them now, but you don't want to hire just anyone.
Sure.
So that, and then having a doctor, you need another doctor. We've grown so rapidly, and finding a doctor is even harder than finding a new front desk person.
Right.
So that, and then just creating the systems, going back in and, going back through and creating systems for all the growth you've had, just letting everything kind of catch up. And then not letting the culture die with all the growth that you have. You have, it goes from being one office and everyone's together and it's this certain feel. You have to be able to duplicate that at another location and then duplicate that again. And I think it's kind of just finding the right mix of energy at each location where you have, enough high energy people and enough low energy people and enough, good team leaders, that it all balances out and still feels good.
Sure.
That's the most important thing for us, that when people walk in, they still feel like, okay, this is Fishbein. It feels good.
And so you travel around to maintain that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And Brittany does too.
Okay. And how do you guys find doctors?
We have gotten really lucky. Dr. Sarah found us, and I can't imagine a better fit for our first doctor.
Yeah, she's incredible.
We really, really lucked out with her. Dr. Razai was a friend of Dr. Ben's from before. Dr. Adrian, our new doctor, we knew him through his mom. So just kind of the same, really, warm referrals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And talk about staffing. Is it good to be overstaffed?
For sure.
Okay.
I think people do not put enough. I don't think they think of that enough, or they think of it in a negative light.
Right.
When for us, having an extra assistant on each team, if it takes pressure off the doctor and it decreases the patient wait time, how is that not worth it? It's a very small thing at the end of the day to worry about. So yeah, we overstaff each location, each team by a minimum of 1 person.
Okay. Awesome.
Because then you also have to account for people calling in sick, being on vacation, taking leave.
So you have buffers in place for growth or if
for sure.
situations happen. And then how do you guys track growth and your goals?
We track it a few different ways. So Dr. Fishbein is just not, he's not a numbers person. So I think if you were to ask him what our numbers are, he
not sure. He
relies
on
you. Right.
Yeah.
So I track it by multiple ways, by location, by doctor, by days per month that we're in that location. So you're looking at, you can expect a certain production per location, but it also matters how many days you're in that location. So you're kind of having to track it back down to a daily production to know how many days that you need to be in that location, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then, we haven't gotten to the point where we've plateaued yet and we're having normal goals, or I guess regular goals that most businesses have because we're still in growth mode.
Sure.
So our goals look a little bit different probably than a traditional
Okay.
practice.
And then what do you use for reporting to look back at previous months?
We use like our practice management software, and then we also use Excel. So both of them. So I have a financial summary that I look at probably at least every day, every other day, a few times a week. And I've got the last 3 years on it, month to month. So I'm looking at, this month compared to where we were last month or this month last year.
Yeah.
And then I'm also looking at taking away that we have a third doctor right now. So like if you take away her production, are we still on track? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you guys have an ROI report as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we look at everything.
You track like Google, Facebook,
Right.
all that.
Where are patients coming from? What are the percentage of those patients starting treatment?
Do you guys ask that like when people come in, or are they also asked at the front desk?
They're asked on the new patient phone call, and they're asked again in the treatment room.
And so you're able to tag people in focus, I guess, based on
Right,
that,
yeah.
and export that data.
Exactly.
And look at it. I think that's huge because a lot of people don't know where patients are coming from.
I'm extremely interested in numbers, so I like to know a lot of details, but I think there's some details that other offices ask, and I have no idea.
Sure.
What's your, there's a lot of questions that'll come up at other practices, or other doctors are interested in different metrics. I like to know things about starts, where did our patients come from, anything to do with referrals, anything to do with our team is something I look at. And of course, production, collections, AR, those are all numbers I like to track.
Yeah.
Conversion rate.
Okay. What are some things that maybe offices focus on tracking that aren't that important?
To us, profit per visit. It's just not a number that we focus on. Yeah. And then we focus probably on numbers that maybe some other offices don't. Like we run an SOS report every single week. How many emergency appointments were created by each assistant? What's the percentage? Is it, is one assistant 10%, one assistant 1%? What's the reason? That's how we know who to go back and have retraining with.
Gotcha.
And then just keeping our emergency visits low across the board is important because that's patient experience. They don't want to have to come back in. So that's a number we look at. We look at every week appointment type timings because we have such a large clinical staff that we need to make sure everyone's kind of working at the same level or at least within the same parameters. So, if it's a 20-minute appointment, are they all within that 20 minutes or are some of them 10 minutes and some of them 30? And again, that goes back to retraining. So our clinical manager runs those reports every single week and then reports to the team based on those.
Awesome.
So we'll also do contests based on if we're trying to get that number to improve, we'll run contests for our team.
How do you do that? What are some of the contests?
Oh my gosh, we do everything. Right now, we're doing, I think, a $25 Starbucks gift card for the most answered calls in a day, or the least drop calls. Just different for different departments.
So you're incentivizing.
Yeah, just fun little things. I think the clinical team right now, it's a manicure pedicure for whoever has the least amount of emergency visits this month. They do all kinds of things like that.
And then you guys even do that with Google reviews, right?
We do, yeah.
So talk about that. What's that look like?
So we don't use an outside service for Google reviews. Okay. We utilize our team. They're here with the patients at the chair. So it'll be something that we're tying to something we're wanting to do anyway. Like if we're wanting to do a team luncheon, we'll say, let's do a shopping spree. So everyone's going to get to go shopping. Dependent on how many Google reviews you have, we'll put money into it, and everyone gets a gift card. That's and awesome. You have an hour to spend it.
And you guys have over 500 Google reviews just for this location.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. Mm-hmm.
We've also done it with custom Nike shoes, Apple Watch, just fun things we can think of that we think our team would want. And it's just, and it's also fun. They love competition.
Yeah. And that's another big thing that I don't think enough offices are doing, are putting goals in place and metrics and then incentivizing people. Do you think that makes the team fight harder and show up so much more for you?
Yeah. I think they want to know that there's a common goal and where are we with that common goal. Though that being said, we don't share full numbers with the team.
Sure.
Just because not everyone understands full numbers. They don't understand overhead and, So it's just one of those things that we don't share, but we come up with common goals for each department. The call center knows if you were to ask them what's your common goal, it's to have an answer call rate of over 97%. We want to make sure at least that amount of calls are being answered, not dropped, not going to voicemail. We do live answers. So before we put this into place, it's a small bonus we're doing right now for them. I think the answer call rate here was around 93%, and it's been 98 or 99 for the last month, like day after day.
Wow.
So it's just like people pay a lot more attention to what they know you're paying attention to.
Right. So each team has a target to hit, and they're all working towards something.
Yeah, so more like each department. So each department knows, like the clinical team knows, like keeping our appointment type timings down, keeping our SOSs down. Same day starts is a goal for the entire team. So the TCs know, a minimum of X amount of same day starts per team is their goal. The financial team knows their goal is collections, getting the collections down. And the call center would be answer call rate. The front desk would be, did you go out at least once every hour and offer coffee and water to everyone in the waiting room? Did you, go out and interact with everyone in the waiting room once an hour, take turns?
And same day starts has kind of become almost a standard, I guess, in the industry.
Yeah.
You guys do it better than anybody that I know and work with.
Thank you.
How do you do that?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
So we started same day starts about 3 years ago, and it was difficult at first because we had never done it. So what we found in the past few years that's made it a lot easier is, first of all, it's what we do. So, it was easy for us because we started with just these few employees. The hard part was getting these few employees on board with it. Once that happened, everybody we hire from that point, it's like, this is how this is what we do. This is a convenience that we want to offer to our patients. And I think being able to present it in that manner, they understand it a little bit more. We don't want them to have to take off work a second time and come back in when they're already here. Let's go ahead and get it done. The other thing is making sure that there is an actual physical chair that patient can be started in, and a person that can work on them. Now, that's a luxury we have now that we didn't have 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, we're all having to scramble to okay, we've got to start. Let's find a chair. Let's find a person. Now we overstaff each team by one person just so one person is available. Sometimes people call in sick, so there's not that extra person, but we try to make sure that we're putting as little pressure on the team as possible, but still staying within the industry standard of how many patients per day each assistant is seeing, and the timings are right. But we try to staff well for it.
So with same day starts, how has that been key to your growth?
I think it's been a big factor in our growth. Same day starts, flexible financing, just a laid back approach to not having the financing plan that you'll throw out if you have to, but being transparent from the start. This is what we can do, and presenting that the first time.
Sure.
If that makes sense. Instead of it being this secret plan that we'll that we'll throw out if we have to.
Yeah.
But being transparent in that has been huge. Same day starts is huge. I mean, most of our starts are same day.
Okay.
So
what percentage?
Over 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, closer to 60.
Okay, that's amazing. And then with financing, I've seen this too as a huge problem. There's so many options sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that can confuse people because they don't know what to pick.
Yeah, so we don't present options.
Okay.
We present one option. I look at options as obstacle. So if you present an option, and I always bring it back to what would I do if I'm in the room and my husband's at work and it's my daughter sitting there in the chair. If someone presents me with option 1, option 2, option 3, one of them being let's say $300 down, $1,000 down, pay in full. A pay in full offers a discount of this percentage. If I'm presented all these options, my first reaction is going to be, I need to talk to my husband about it. Let me call him and see, do you want me to pay in full and get the discount, or do you want me to finance it? Do you want me to put it, what do you think we should do? On the other hand, if someone were to present to me, this is going to be $300 down and $184 a month, does that work for you? Oh yeah, that works. It's not even anything I would call my husband about.
Yeah.
So
you're able to digest the information.
Yeah. And I don't have to choose. So sometimes just eliminating the choices helps, and it's definitely helped our conversion rates.
Awesome. Explain the relationship between the doctor and the COO. What should that look like?
I think it's probably different for every practice.
Sure.
For us, it's a lot different because he is not strongly involved in management. He has a lot to do with marketing and the new patient process. And he has a lot of amazing ideas. He'll come up with great ideas. He'll think of them, and then he will just present them to us, like Eliza or me, Brittany, and then we'll take it from there and just run with it. I think it'll be different from every office, though, dependent on the doctor's personality and then the leadership style of the team. But for us, we're in constant communication to a degree. There's things that, like a lot of times employees, he'll meet them on the first day, the day they start. So I think the relationship for us, we've worked together for so long and we built this business from very small to what it is now together. So we have a mutual respect for one another in what both of our roles are.
Yeah. What would you say to a COO who's dealing with a doctor who's maybe getting in the way of growth?
It's hard. That's a tough problem. And I think it depends on what that doctor wants. So with Dr. Ben, he knew what he wanted and he knew what he could do. So, and he knows, like, at this point, his time is best spent in the clinic. To be as productive as you can be, you have to be available to see patients.
Sure.
That's where you need to be. So there's things that he wants to know about. And I know what is important to him. And I think you just have to basically have a trust.
Yeah,
a mutual trust.
That's huge. Any last words of advice to an orthodontic office looking to grow quickly and run efficiently?
I think grow quickly. I think, like, some of the things we did, we went to courses as much as we could. I think the first year I was managing, we went to 4 or 5. I developed relationships with people in the industry. You know that, from your business. Yeah. That's huge. I started managing this practice with 0 experience in managing. I had no idea how to run a report. Thankful for YouTube. But I think just, knowing what your goal is, knowing what the goal is for today, tomorrow, and long term, and then develop a plan that makes sense. So when we develop our goals, like, I always have, this is a minimum goal, this is a realistic goal, and this is our far-reaching goal. And I'm always going for the far-reaching goal. Right. But realistically, right? Yeah. So, and then you have to put, you can't just think you want to grow and then just expect it's going to happen magically. You have to invest money in marketing. Our marketing budget is probably higher than anyone I know. You have to be willing to, take the necessary steps to experience growth. Sure. So, but, don't be smart, be smart about it. Like, track what you're putting your money into, what's coming back to you. And then I would say, look at what's happening and what's working for other offices and try it. Like, we're willing to try anything. We always have been. We'll try it. If it works for us, great. If it doesn't work for us, we'll try something different next week.
Definitely. That's huge, to be able to learn from people and take what they're doing, analyze it, test it in your practice, and use what works, and then cut out and trim the fat. That's big. So thanks so much for sitting down and chatting. I know this is going to be huge for orthodontic practices, doctors, COOs, managers listening to this. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about HIP or any of the topics in this episode, send an email to hello@hipcreativeinc.com. That's hello@hipcreativeinc.com, or jump over to our website at hip.agency.